Hey guys, Bobby M back for the third installment of the Beer Tools Pro 1.5 tutorial series, and this one's going to focus on recipe scaling. So let's get into tools. The first thing is you're probably going to find a recipe online or in a book like Brewing Classic Styles and want to replicate it in your software here. And all recipes have some assumed efficiency level and batch size, so if those don't fit your brewing process or plans, you're going to want to scale the grain bill based on your actual numbers. All right, so first of all, to build the recipe, you need to replicate it as is in the recipe itself. The first thing I'm going to do is set my efficiency to 70%, and in Brewing Classic Styles, every recipe is based on 70% brewhouse efficiency. Second, you're going to want to set your final volume or batch size to 6 gallons, again, because that is a fixed assumption in this book or for a given recipe. Once you set that, you're going to build your recipe based on the ingredients that are listed. So I have Pilsner malt and pale wheat and some Tettnager hops. So for Pilsner I have 7.5 pounds, and for the wheat I have 5 pounds. And given all of those parameters I just entered, the estimated original gravity is 1050. Alright, now let's assume that we don't really want to brew 6 gallons, that we want to brew something else. Let's say we want to scale it up to 10 gallons. All we need to do is select this checkbox and scale on the drop down, and then go ahead and change to your desired volume of 10 gallons. Alright, you can see that the quantities of the Pilsner malt and the wheat malt have been increased to compensate for the new finished batch size. Notice that the original gravity estimate of 1050 is fixed, and the malt bill went up from 7.5 to 12.5 and from 5 to 8.3. Alright, so that's just a quick way to scale the recipe. And you can also go down in size as well. So you might want to go down to 5 gallons instead of 6. So you can still see that the quantity has changed, but the original gravity estimate is fixed. Of course, you don't want to change the original gravity of a recipe because you're actually changing the character of the beer. Okay, the next thing you might want to change, let me just go back to 6 gallons. Let's assume that the next thing that you want to compensate for is a different efficiency than the assumed recipe efficiency. Again, the book calls for 70%, and I get 88% for the most part on all my batches, so I need to change this. What you can do here is select efficiency scaling, and then go ahead and enter your typical efficiency. Now notice that the original gravity of 1050 stays fixed, and the quantity requirements of the malt bill changes. So I went from 7.5 pounds down to just under 6. And again, this is a very close to 6, so I'm going to change that, round it up. And that's just under 4, so I'll assume 4 pounds is fine. Alright, so the original gravity was slightly modified due to my rounding up, but for the most part it's 1050. Alright, so that's just 2 ways to adjust the assumptions of a recipe to match your actual process or actual efficiency. One last thing I wanted to mention was that after you get your brew done and your wort is in the fermenter, you might want to verify what your efficiency actually was, and there are 2 things you need to verify to do that. The first thing is to make sure that you achieved the 6 gallon volume that you anticipated or you planned for. It's not too common to nail it perfectly, due to system variables, but let's assume that you got the 6 gallons that you were looking for. You'll go down into your analysis, and here's an OG reading window here that you can override, and you're going to want to take a gravity sample of the chilled wort that's in your fermenter, and let's say that instead of 1051 you actually got 1049, temperature corrected of course. So you can go ahead and enter that. Now notice that the efficiency number was automatically adjusted down to match the actual OG that I measured. Instead of 88 I got 85.25. Now another thing to keep in mind is if you didn't achieve that final volume that you were planning for of 6 gallons, let's say that I actually collected 5.75, and again let's say that I measured 1049, that also affects the measured efficiency that you achieved. Instead of 88%, you really have 81.69. Alright, because not only did I get a lower gravity than I expected, but I also got less volume than expected. So those two combined lowers your efficiency even more. One final thing is, let's say you did collect the 5.75, but you did achieve the original gravity that you were shooting for of 1051. Again, you still don't have that 88% efficiency that you planned for because you got less volume. It takes 6 gallons at 1051 to be the efficiency that you planned for. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Scale your recipes for volumes, for batch size, and for your typical efficiency numbers, and then measure your final volume and gravity and enter those actual numbers into the software after the fact to find out how you actually did with your efficiency. Okay, that's all I have for this video. Please respond in comments if you have any other topics or questions about it, and I'll try to make a video for you.